Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the introductory to ArcGIS Story Maps. My name is Shane Fire. I'm going to give a brief introduction of who we are and a really brief introduction of ArcGIS Story Maps, and then we're going to have Sean take over from there. So as you can see here, we're going to do brief introductions. We're going to go into ArcGIS, WebGIS, Web Applications, and Story Maps. The Esri ecosystems, for those of you who do not know what the Esri ecosystem is, as well as basic workflows and basic concepts for working with story maps. And then Sean Hogan is going to take over from there and talk more about story maps and lead you through a handful of exercises and really get into the nitty-gritty of story maps and how they work. Sean will also talk about ArcGIS Online and the associated apps, as well as, like it says here, adding data, creating web maps, the story map builder, and so forth. So this is kind of what we're going to do today. The entire workshop's probably going to be between 1 to 4. We'll probably start asking questions and have a little extra time at the end for you to ask questions, get more information. And you'll see how it flows throughout the morning, or throughout the afternoon. Sorry, it's not morning. So thank you for coming today. This is one of our IGIS workshops, the Informatics and GIS statewide program, which I am part of, as well as Sean Hogan and others on this call, is part of the University of California Ag and Natural Resources Division. This is the organization whose primary goal is to extend the research of the college and universities to the general public. In a lot of universities, in a lot of states, they're associated with the land-grant universities, as we are here in California. And our principal campuses are UC Davis, UC Berkeley, and UC Riverside. And we have academics and staff in almost every county, as well as in most campuses. And even when we have 9 research extension centers around the state. You probably know us most or best for the farm advisors and cooperative extension specialists who are around the state, as well as some of our core programs such as 4-H, Master Gardeners, CalFresh, UCIPM, and things like that. So IGIS is on the same level as those programs. We're a small but strong team who specialize in applying geospatial technologies, drones, and innovation to problem solve in California and help Californians. So who are we? Like I said, we are a small group. My name is Shane Fire. I'm gonna, like I said, gonna be doing the intro presentation. Sean Hogan is going to be giving the exercises. And then we have Maggie Kelly, who's not here today. She is our director. She's located in Berkeley. Andy Lyons and Ben Satzman, who are on this call and are available here today to help answer questions, are also in Berkeley. Another one of our colleagues, Robert Johnson, is here to answer questions as well. And Robert is in the Southern Central Valley at the Kearney Ag Center. Sean Hogan is at UC Davis, and I'm up in Mendocino County at the Hoffman Research and Extension Center. So who are you? So what I'd like you to do, and this is something that our director does, and this is actually a really nice thing. I would love to have you open up the chat window in Zoom. Please put in your name, what you hope to learn from today's workshop, and what your experience level with story maps is, whether 1 if you're a beginner or 5 if you're an expert. And please just tell us about you in that way, and it'll help us get a feeling for who's here. And I will note that I've been working with story maps since they came out, and depending on the day, I can say I'm a 1, and then on other days I'd say I was a 5. So it just depends on how I'm feeling that day. Thank you, Jennifer. Hopefully you leave here learning how to do that. Mario, Shannon, good. Experience 1. Like I said, I feel that way a lot. Nice. Seeing a lot of beginners, which is nice. It is a really powerful tool, and as you get into it, it gets easier to use. Okay, good. Seeing a lot of 1s, a few 2s. And what you'll find as we go through the workshop today, if you have questions, if things don't work the way they're supposed to, please use the chat window, drop us questions, and we'll go from there, and we'll be there to help. Thank you. Okay, seems like mostly ones and twos. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for putting that in there. And those who haven't done it yet, please feel free to, but then also any other questions. So today's workshop, so Sean is going to show you, he's going to walk you through building a story map. Here's, I believe, Sean, here's an example of a story map of the participants who've been involved, who are here today. And he's created the story map so you can actually see where people are from and a little bit of information about the area that they're from. And Sean, is this what they're building today?
Yes, yeah. Well, they're not going to be building this. They'll be using the same builder app, but they won't be building this specific story map.
Oh, right, because this has specific information about locations.
Mm-hmm.
So why you might, well, so let's go into why you might want to make a story map. So one thing nice about story maps is they're really content-rich websites that you can use to display spatial and non-spatial information, or to put it more simply, map information as well as contextual information. And this could be about pictures, places, whatever you want. The nice thing about it is they're very journalistic in style. There are multiple templates and formats that you can choose from right out of the box. There's no coding required. They can call on multiple databases. And when I say databases, I mean whether it be Esri data sources or other data sources, as long as you can get them into a web map inside the ArcGIS Online ecosystem, you can bring them into a story map. And like I said here, you can make them without coding, but even more, it's technically a story map, maybe easy to build. They're really easy to build, but what we have found is they're a challenge to design due to the endless artistic and written directions that the story map may take. One of the things I tend to tell people to do when it comes to designing a story map is if you can picture a presentation or write a PowerPoint presentation, you can build a story map. And after you get done with today's workshop, you'll be able to take like a presentation and build a story map out of it. The big things about story maps is it's a really nice interactive way to get your story out to people, and they can follow along at their own pace and learn things that you want them to learn. So like it says, why you might want to make one is for these reasons. Things that story maps may not do well, and I would completely agree that story maps are not for everything. One thing you most likely would not want to do is collect data with a story map, because you're really just telling a story and showing the information from data. If you want to collect information, Esri ArcGIS Online provides much better web applications for doing that. In fact, our team has a series of trainings we do throughout the year. The trainings you'd want to go to are things more related to field maps, a collector, things like that, not story maps. One thing also about story maps is, and in general, most of the Esri web apps, they don't handle mobile devices really well. They're good on computers, they're good on tablets, but once you start to get down to the size of a phone, they're not all of them are as responsive as you would like. So just keep that in mind, and you want to design your maps accordingly, knowing that they aren't going to work well on small devices. Also, because this is a non-code option for building these tools, you do have a very limited options for look and feel, as opposed to if we were building it from scratch, we could change fonts, colors, size, and shapes of just about everything if you're building it from scratch. But because this is not from scratch and you're using an environment set up to make it easy, we are limited on some of the things we can do. But Sean will work through some ways you can set up formats and templates that you can really brand it to look like your organization, but there are certain things you cannot do. One thing nice about story maps that I mentioned, you could bring in other content, you could bring in spatial data as well as other data. in a story map, you can bring in web maps, you can bring in other web applications, photos and videos. You could have photos on your device. You can upload them to the story map and make them accessible. You can link to videos from other sources like YouTube, I think Vimeo, and several other online sources for videos. You can easily import text and set different styling on your text. And there's even styling for quotes, hyperlinks, or other embedded external websites or videos, which is really nice. One of the caveats, though, to any of these external data sources, such as photos, videos, and websites, is it has to be HTTPS. So hypertext transport protocol is secure. If it's not, those things will not come into the site. So just keep note of that as you're going through the process. But with this tool, you can bring in a lot of other information, and they're very, very powerful. So I mentioned web maps. So as a quick overview, a web map is a basic online map with custom symbology. They have limited layout options, labels, infographics, and other widgets. This is something you can build in the ArcGIS Online environment. So you can open a web map, you can drag and drop data onto it, drop it, it'll plot your data. You can go in and you can add data from other data sources. You can symbolize it, and as I said, you can add labels and infographics, and then you can save it. You would want to most likely bring this into a story map the way it is, like link directly to a story map with the builders still in play. What you would instead want to do is you'd want to add it to a web mapping application, or just bring the web map in as a type inside the web mapping application or the story map. And Sean will go through this throughout the workshop. So web maps, and I like to think of web maps as almost like a Word document where you're constructing your document, you're symbolizing it, you're changing fonts, you're changing colors, and then you want to make something that you're going to give to somebody else to interact with and work with. So to use the document analogy, you've got the Word document, and then you create a PDF, and then you send that PDF to someone. They can't edit it, but they can read it, and they can do other things you let them do. And that's kind of what you do with web applications, is you have the ability to really customize what they can and can't do with the site. And in ArcGIS Online, there are web applications. There are many of them. Story maps are just one type of web application. And then once you get into the ArcGIS ecosystem, you can do many things with web apps. So in this case, you can see several web applications. In general, they're very graphically appealing. They include a variety of layout options, labels, infographics, and others. What you'll see here on the left, you see the UC California UC California Naturalist program. And this web app just shows you where there are programs around the state offering California Master Naturalists. And it's a really simple web app that you can build with ArcGIS Online. And then it becomes more and more complex, such as the COVID-19 dashboard by Johns Hopkins University that they used throughout which they developed at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And I believe they still have it up and running to this day. These are all using ArcGIS and their system. The middle one with Johns Hopkins uses the dashboard application. And if you have access to ArcGIS Online, you have access to a whole suite of applications, and you'll see that in a second. In terms of story maps, we in ANR and IGS, we have helped build several over the last several years. Two of those that have gotten some good attention are these. We have a UCANR virtual tour. A few years back, at the height of COVID, the UC got a new president, hired on a new president of the University of California. But at that point, we couldn't give them a tour of ANR facilities and where we were. So we worked with ANR and other people around the state and actually developed a virtual tour so we could take the president of the UC, virtually around to different places around the state, cooperative extension offices, UC campuses, and UC research extension centers. It was a very successful tour, and I believe we're still using it quite often for our trainings for new academics and staff. The other one you see here is a partnership between a nonprofit in Sonoma County, cooperative extension, and an external geospatial company. It's called the Wildfire Fuel Mapper. And this is just all about talking about fire risk and things you can do to help um, uh, work on minimizing the impacts of fire on your properties for landowners, in this case in Sonoma County. And this is going to be expanded to other counties around the Bay Area as time progresses here. And these were built using the story map tools. So everything I just showed briefly was from the ArcGIS ecosystem, or the Esri software. So what that includes is there's ArcGIS Online. You may have heard of ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Pro, and then of course all the different types of story maps and applications that we can use. So right here we're just highlighting story map apps and ArcGIS Online. And you can see on the side here, it mentions really importantly that any of the data that we bring into story maps, ArcGIS story maps and ArcGIS Online needs to have a secure connection. So it has to be HTTPS. Yeah, like I said, if it's not, you will not be able to bring it in. It'll act like it is, but you'll end up with blank images, blank video, or blank pages inside of ArcGIS Online and inside the web apps. So just keep that in mind. So the important thing about building a story map, once again, you're going to use the tools provided by the Esri ecosystem, but it's all about the data, the design, and then to develop. You're going to develop these tools in story maps. You're going to do a design in story maps, and you're going to use data that you can add to the system inside of ArcGIS Online. This can be pre-existing data, and ArcGIS Online provides a lot of pre-existing data from very reputable sources, all the way to data that you have on your computer that you developed in your research and in other ways, and you can bring that in and create a story map out of it. So why would you use the ArcGIS Online and the integration that it provides? And like I just mentioned, there's a lot of data. There's the Living Atlas, there are thousands and thousands of data sets that you can bring in. Most of these data sets are not just for individual sites, they're for state level, nation level, worldwide data sets that you can bring in. Like I said, you can bring in external data, you can bring in your own personal data. Then you can use ArcGIS Online to design your web maps and your web apps and use them and provide them to others so they can see what you've been doing. Also using ArcGIS Online, like I mentioned, you can create web apps, story maps, and native apps. For those of you who don't know what native apps are, what we mean by native apps are applications that are developed for very mobile specific needs. These could be for iOS devices, Android devices, Windows phones, and different types of tablets. They have a very specific code structure, and it allows you to create native applications you can download to your mobile devices. We're not going to get into this today, but Esri also has tools that you can use to do that using their data and their web maps. So you've heard me mention Esri software. You've heard me mention ArcGIS Pro and as well as ArcGIS Online. So just as a quick thing, let's just kind of just talk about the difference between ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro. Both of those tools can access loads of data. ArcGIS Online can actually feed data into ArcGIS Pro. You can load data from ArcGIS Pro directly, direct in ArcGIS Pro. You can also publish data from ArcGIS Pro directly to ArcGIS Online. So they're integrated together and they work well together. So if we talk about ArcGIS Online specifically, you can create web maps and web apps. You can link to loads of apps, like we mentioned, story maps being one of them. You can do simple analyses with vector data. They're starting to make it more powerful and giving us options to do raster analysis online, but that's just coming up. And if you're in the UC system, you now have access to some of those licenses to work with rasters. And if you have questions, please follow up after with some emails and I can help you out and understand what's available. ArcGIS Online is fast, it's intuitive, and the really important thing is ArcGIS Online is browser-based. It can run on a Linux machine, Windows machines, Macs, tablets, phones, anything. When you're talking about ArcGIS Pro, however, there's a lot of strengths. You can do absolutely gorgeous cartography. You can easily control projections, and you can do advanced analysis, image processing, spatial modeling. You can process UAV, drone data, LiDAR. You can do reproducible coding using Python, and it really gets you a lot of strength. Note though, it requires an organizational license and a Windows desktop computer. So one of the big shortcomings of ArcGIS Pro is that it's only available on a Windows computer, and it has to run 64-bit Windows, which most computers are these days. But the important thing is Pro's only Windows, whereas AGOL can work on all those systems. I keep mentioning that in ArcGIS Online, there are many different applications you can work with and you can get access to. There are, as you can see here, we're looking at 23 different apps that you can get access to. And this isn't even an exhaustive list. There are more. Depending on your organization and the license agreement with Esri, you may not see all of these. You may not have access to all of these. But depending on it, you could have this and more, and each one of these do things in ArcGIS Online using your data in different ways. And I should note that we do training classes in story maps, field maps, and if I look here more, we do an intro to ArcGIS Online, intro to ArcGIS Pro, and others as well. So there are many of these things that we actually discuss throughout the year and have trainings on. So let's just quickly hit on GIS in the cloud, and then we're going to hit on a few key points between in the cloud versus ArcGIS Pro. In using ArcGIS Online and or story maps, you have a lot of options. You have data both in spatial and non-data forms. You have sharing, so you can decide how people and who gets to look at your work. And there are many building blocks you can work with, but the key ones in ArcGIS Online are going to be web maps and web apps. And you want to think about how these fit into your story maps. And Sean's going to talk about starting with a web map and bringing the data in. He's going to show you how you can actually link to external sources. And some of those external sources could be other web apps from the ArcGIS ecosystem. And then not only are you dealing with data sharing and building blocks, but also visualizations. So using these tools, it really gives you an opportunity to really look at how you want to style your data, what symbology you want to what symbology you want to use, and really to tell your story. So many of you, if you've worked with GIS before, you're probably used to shapefiles, and you're probably used to rasters. And depending on how long you've been doing GIS, you may also be used to coverages and grids. But now we're talking about GIS in the cloud, and there's some different terminology you're going to hear. Some of the terminology is going to be layers and services. So if you're thinking layers in GIS terms, you're talking vectors and rasters. So points, lines, and polygons and rasters. And in ArcGIS Online, you can bring those in and you can symbolize them and use those data inside of your web maps. Beyond those basic things like vectors and rasters, you can also bring in image layers, which can include elevation layers and other web mapping data, as well as 3D scenes. And you can also bring in tile layers and vector layers. This is other ways of bringing in raster data and underlying background data. But not only do you have layers, you'll be hearing people refer to services. Often in ArcGIS Online, you have layers. They're stored in ArcGIS Online as hosted feature services, image services, tile services, base map services, and what they are is it's computer readable instructions of what that data contains, and it allows your computer, whether it be ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Online, to read the data and bring it in and symbolize it and work with the data. So layers themselves are the data, and services are the tools, the way I look at it, as a way to get access to and use those data. So if we're talking about data in the cloud and sharing, you probably have data that you don't want everyone to have access to. You may not want to share it with anyone. You may want to share it with within a group in your organization, or the entire organization, or everyone. So one of the nice things about ArcGIS Online is they provide many different ways to share your data. You can share it with just you. You can share it with a group, and you can have other people from other organizations in your group if you have it set up that way. you can share it with everyone in your organization or everyone in the general public. Some layers you may not want to do this with if you're collecting data, like data collection apps, because you got to be careful on what you expose and what you give people access to. Also, you want to be really careful about the data you share in terms of personal identifying information, stuff that you may want to keep confidential. So be really careful on how you set your sharing. So now we should probably talk a little bit more about story maps beyond just ArcGIS Online. There are two main ways to do story maps. In fact, actually, there's a third that just came out this spring, but there's two main ways. There are the old story map templates, and there are 7 story map templates that Esri's had for several years now. And then they have the Story Maps app. We are going to be talking about the Story Maps app today almost solely. That's what we're going to be working with. Part of the reason for that is the older templates that you see on the left are being phased out. You can still build them and you can have them and use them. At some point, the templates are going away and your story maps that you built with those templates will still work, but you won't be able to make them anymore. So they're going to be gradually phasing us into using solely the Story Maps app. And that's what we're going to describe and show you how to work with. And in this slide, we're talking about the 2 different ways to build apps, and that kind of gets at the previous slide. The first part is your base, and this is what you're going to work with, where your data is stored and where you make your web maps. So you're going to create and manage web maps and features inside of AGOL or ArcGIS Online. And once again, like I said, you have access to loads of data, and you can also create non-story map applications like we described. But if you want to make a story map, you're gonna either do the build the story maps in ArcGIS Online using those templates as long as they exist, and they're really straightforward to use, and you can make some nice applications with them. Or you can do the second method, and this is going to be using the Story Maps app. And right now there are 3 different story map templates, but they're really quite powerful. You can combine a lot of different features between them. You can add functionality that used to be part of the original 7 into one story map and really make it yours and make it work really well. The one thing I've noticed recently is that Esri or ESRI, the company who owns ArcGIS Online, is taking like these 7 story maps templates and kind of making, I like to use the Lord of the Rings analogy. They're building the one app, the one ring to rule everything. So they're taking all those one and building it into one app, and that's what their Story Map app is. It's really powerful, and it's not that bad to work with. It's pretty straightforward. So what your workflow is going to be. So once again, you're going to be using hosted feature layers. You're going to load those data into a web map. They can be part of a web app or brought directly into a story map. And then you're going to have a script and a story that you want to tell. This is where you can have more, like I said in the beginning, a more journalistic input. It's more of a journalistic output that you're doing. So you're telling your story. You're putting text and media to go with it, and you've got spatial information to go with it. So you can really tell a really interactive, visually compelling story. And once again, I just have to reiterate that all your data that you bring in from external sources needs to be HTTPS. Otherwise, you will get errors. And if you have any issues with story maps, please feel free to reach out to our team and we can help. We have, I will say, we have office hours. We can help you if you get stuck on any parts of this as you're working through the process. So I mentioned that there's a third way to do story maps, and this came out this spring. Sean, have you used this much?
I got to get to the unmute. No, I have not.
Okay, yeah, this is Story Maps is part of your ArcGIS Online organization, and it's one of the apps you have access to. In the spring, they came out with a new service. It's a paid service just for story maps, and it's a really scaled back version of what you can do with their full version. But it makes it easy for anyone to make a story map without having to actually buy ArcGIS Online and get licenses and deal with it that way. So we haven't dealt with it at all. It's fairly new, but as far as I know, there's more functionality with the one we're going to show you.
I could say though, I did briefly kick its tires, and it was very similar to what we'll be working on today, with the essential limitation being that you don't have interactive connections to ArcGIS Online or any kind of web maps or web mapping applications.
So it's just so you're saying it's just the ability to bring in video, text, and photos.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, then there you go. So yeah, so there's the strengths of having it through ArcGIS Online is you can bring that spatial component in. So it's weird that they call it story maps, even though you really can't use maps. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover as an introduction. Sean, we mentioned that it's going to be a break coming up. How long a break do you want before you start back out?
You know what? Let's jump into it right now because I will bring us up close to the hour. Okay. And then at our first break, by then we'll know if anyone needs any tech support to get their licensing going.
Okay, perfect. Well, with that, I'm going to step into the background and I'm going to take on the role of tech support with the rest of my colleagues. Sean, it's on you.
All right. Yes. And speaking of the tech support, we do have Shane. I always call him our GIS guru. If I have a question, he's the one that I usually ask. And if not him, Robert Johnson. Andy Lyons is on the call, and he has a wonderfully wide base of knowledge of all kinds of things, including web mapping and other geospatial tech like knowledge. And we also have Ben Satman on here as well. It's all of which are happy to help you with your questions. If you do have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Because I will have so many windows open at once, it's hard to have the chat in there because it ends up covering up essential things that I need to be able to see. And so I leave it up to my colleagues to kind of monitor the chat. And sometimes they'll answer the question directly in the chat, or they'll kind of moderate the questions to me when timing is appropriate. We have 25 participants in here. There's generally we try to go with the chat first, but especially when we come to the breaks, if you want to unmute yourself, and you can ask questions at those times as well. You'll see that I get onto a roll, and I'll try not to fire hose you with too much information too quick. But at the same time, I'm going to try to slow down at the sections where I've kind of realized it's difficult for people to both see what I'm talking about or see my screen, listen to me, look at the exercise material, look at the screen that you're actually working on. And then we have a peripheral document that we'll be referring to and where we'll be cutting and pasting from quite a bit through this workshop. And when you put all of those windows together, we only have so much real estate and on the screen, and it's kind of tricky and to take some time to sort through. So that's the first thing I usually go with. I'm going to share my screen now. Good. Is how I recommend setting up your screens, because not only do you have the three screens I'll be working with, but you'll also have probably my screen share in your window as well, which will cover up even more of your limited space on your windows. If you happen to have a second monitor, that's great. One thing I always recommend, if you don't have a mouse or a trackball, try to get one maybe during the break or find one. I know this is pertinent to people that are working on a laptop, and it's really hard to toggle between things with the touchpad or the track button and not get and keep up. So that's pretty much good advice on any time you're working with a GIS software of some sort. We always need a mouse or a trackball. So what I'll be working on right to start with is I'm going to kind of cover the things that we're going to go over. But before I do that, again, I want to talk about how I like to lay out the windows. And the first thing is I usually put the exercise on the left side of my screen. I know many of us have become experts at online learning over the COVID lockdowns and so forth. And so you might have your own strategies here, but this is just kind of what I've settled on. I like to have the exercise over on the left side of my window. This is in a Google Doc. What you should have received earlier today was an email at about 11:22 that had a file folder that you can download. And if you haven't downloaded that yet, download that. And inside of that folder, what you will see is something like this. I created a story maps workshop folder. It'll come down like this. And what you'll need to do is unzip it. I use 7-zip, but every computer tends to have its own kind of decompression software on it. And then when it unzips, you'll see the rest of these files on in your computer. I recommend putting this ArcGIS or a story maps workshop folder on your C drive. I put it in a trash folder personally, just because I have to delete it every time I redo a new workshop. But once it's downloaded, you can delete that. And inside of that, you will find the exercise that we have over on the side. We'll have the presentation in a PDF form that Shane just provided. And you'll also see a UCANR story map visualization and organization Word document, which is important for the hands-on exercise later in the workshop. And then we have a CSV file here that we'll be using for creating our map for the workshop, as well as a bunch of media that we'll be using to plug into the story map. So hopefully, if you haven't already done so, go to your email, get this, download it, and create a file on your C drive, ArcGIS Story Maps Workshop. Put the download inside of that folder and decompress it. It will need to be decompressed or unzipped, because you won't be able to use the files inside of it if it's still compressed. Anyways, I'm going to close my close my email here so it doesn't pop up on the recording over and over again. One thing though, real quick, someone asked during Shane's presentation via email, let's see how, oops, my Zoom's in front of this, asking if you can take a map from ArcGIS Pro and put it up into a story map or into ArcGIS Online in general. The answer to that is yes. It's not difficult. If you have questions specific to that, we have office hours for IGIS on Mondays and Tuesdays in the afternoon. You can go to the UCANR-IGIS website and look on there, and you'll find an office hour sign up, and we can help you get set up with that. We don't have that in this workshop specifically. We actually did have a little 10-minute section at the end of the previous field maps workshop that talked about how to sync your ArcGIS Pro to your ArcGIS Online content. But yeah, we probably won't have time today, and it would be kind of an offshoot. But yeah, sign up for office hours on the IGIS website. Another thing too, this workshop is being recorded, just like almost all of our workshops are now, and it takes about a few days for me to edit them and set them up on our IGIS YouTube channel, which has become fairly popular. And so mid next week, you'll probably receive an email saying that the workshop recording is up, and with a link, and you can go back to that to either refresh your memory, if you missed some of this and had questions, or if you want to go back over it, all of what we're covering today will be included there, including links to the workshop material. Good, so I'm going to close this. Very good, so here's the content. Again, hopefully you download that. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Back to the windows. So we have the exercise that came from the download here. I will recommend that you put your actually working ArcGIS Online and your story maps window right in the center, because that's what you're going to be working on, and I'll be working on that too simultaneously, which you'll probably want to put my window off to the side somewhere up in a corner to just listen and then follow along. Everyone has their own strategy on how they would like to go through the workshop. It seems that most people like to listen and watch what I do, and then try to replicate that at their own speed in their workshop exercise session. That would be the center window. But they'll also have to be toggling between things like this story map visualization and organization sheet that will have a whole bunch of text that you can copy and paste, subtitles, titles. In this workshop, you'll get very used to Control-C, Control-V for copy and paste, or sometimes copy and then paste text only. In a lot of cases during the exercise, that works better. And the reason we put all this content together is because we have this into like a 3-hour workshop, and without already coming up with this curated text and the photos and so forth, it would turn into like a 2 or 3 day workshop. And so, and then also, instead of having this be like a speed typing workshop, it was going to be more of a relaxed copy and paste into your story map. You'll find that creating the story map is a pretty straightforward and easy process for the most part. I know, granted, there's glitches every so often, but it is fairly easy. The time-consuming and difficult part is coming up with the narrative and the elements of the story. And when I mean elements, is sometimes that might include a video, it might be a photo, it might be a web map, it could be the text. All of this put together is what makes a story map kind of like that journalistically rich, kind of fun, interesting, like spatially oriented story. So anyways, we'll have all of this. So what you might also notice is that I've leafed these layers. So I have my exercise, my working window is what I might call it, and then my reference document kind of at different levels, so I can just click between them depending on which one I want to work in. Good. Now back to the data folder that I was just showing you. One more thing that I should mention here is the RECs, the UCANR-IGIS. Shane mentioned that we have 9 research and extension centers, or RECs for short, around the state. Just to have some kind of thematic continuity, we decided to make this workshop just kind of as a talk about our research center system, and for lack of a better topic. And with that, we have these addresses, and I'm going to double click on this, and you can too if you'd like, and hopefully it'll come up in my Excel and at some point. There it did, just was hidden down there. And what you'll see inside this document, CSV file, is the research centers, the names of them, the address, and then there's a secondary address, city, state. By bringing this data into ArcGIS Online, we will create a hosted feature layer that will be one of the spatial reference for our story map. Kind of is like an underlying guide to the story map. So, and ArcGIS Online can what's called geocode addresses without any difficulty, using either just standard street addresses or latitude and longitude. So I'm going to close this out. One thing that we've had people ask before in the past is, can it be an Excel file? And that answer is no, but it can be a Google Doc, or excuse me, a Google Sheet that you can use. But there's specific directions for that. And if you ever need that, just let us know. I actually have a short write-up on how to bring in Google Sheets as well. So this is what your what your file folder that you downloaded should look like. Good. You'll see that a lot of what I'm covering right now is sort of a soft start, just kind of an orientation. And when we get in a few minutes, like after the hour, we'll be jumping into the kind of I wouldn't say the harder start, but the stuff that you're really going to get your hands dirty with. Good. So first thing that I'd like you to do, and I'm going to just close this out actually, because I don't need ArcGIS Online up right there. I'm going to bring now this is where you're going to get going. Instead of just info only, I want you to open up a window. I'm using Google Chrome, but use your browser. to come up with a new window. I have to split this off so I can put it back where I was before. Good. And just search in there for ArcGIS Online login. I looked this up generally just because I don't bookmark it, so I can just go to it easily for workshop purposes. And here you'll see ArcGIS Online login account login. You can click there, but I prefer to go down for just one step less, go into sign in and click on that. This, by the way, is also going to be a little bit of a test just to make sure that your licenses will be full-fledged enough for what we'll be doing today. Good. So when this comes up, it's going to be looking at, I don't know what tab that's at. Actually, that looks like our gallery tab almost, but yeah. Anyways, when this first come up, it'll look a little bit different for everybody probably, but we'll be mostly working off of our content to start with. So go ahead over to content and click on that. And this is where I'm going to check to see if everybody has the necessary extensions. And how you do that is go over to this little cluster of dots, these 9 dots in the top rightish corner of your screen, and click on that. And this might look familiar from what Shane was showing earlier, where there's story maps, map viewer. I think there was, there's 23 or so of these in there, and depending on your license. The important thing that we got to check right now is to make sure that story maps is in here. And it might not be in this order. You can grab these and rearrange them. I just put them in the order already that I usually use them. And because I've been working with story maps, this is the first one that pops up. You might have to kind of scroll through these to find your story maps button or icon. Once you find it though, click on it. And if it comes up like this, you should be good to go. We shouldn't have any problems. There's, again, sometimes that's one of the biggest issues that we've had in past workshops, and it seems to be less and less of a problem because more organizations have got the story maps extension included, but once in a while, organizations won't, or accounts won't have that. That's why we've been recommending using the IGIS account in recent times. Good. So once that's there, I'm going to just close out of that for now because we'll come back to it. Good. And if you have that set up right there, then let's take a break now for 10 minutes. We'll come back about, call it 2:04. All right, so I guess we'll get going now, which is another kind of sort of semi-soft start. And with that, I'm going to just give you a couple little tips based on what we've experienced in previous workshops. Every single time we do a workshop, we'll do evaluations afterwards. You'll see an evaluation link sent to you at the end of the workshop. Both in the chat and then via email that looks something like that. We go through our feedback and we take it seriously. Praise is great because it shows that we're doing a good job, but it also is important for us to improve upon our workshops. And I watch every video of the previous workshop to improve upon it the next time. And I always learn a little something. And one of those things that I learned from the previous workshop is that some people have a hard time with their being able to copy and paste from PDFs because some Adobe applications don't let you copy and paste. But what you can do is you can go into the exercise PDF and then select open with either Google Chrome or, in my case, one of your browsers instead of your Adobe software. And then you can copy and paste from one of these. So if you end up having an issue where you can't copy and paste from the PDF, then reopen it with one of your browser windows, and then you'll be able to copy and paste from it. So just a little suggestion there. Good. I want to touch on a couple things that Shane kind of also touched on. One was the older, now being phased out story map templates. They still exist. I had to go look for them again, and I was happy to see that they're still available. They're not as easily available as they used to be, but if you look up Story Maps Classic, then it'll bring you to a page that allows you to select some of the very neat old templates for web mapping applications that are essentially story maps. And just one thing to note is a web mapping application is a web map that has widgets, infographics, specific template layouts that then are just more appealing, almost web page-esque designs. And story maps is just a kind of one of those sort of template themed layouts, or more than one actually, but among those there's some that are really neat that are partially incorporated into the story map builder. And this is just a little note. Esri, they're notorious for this. They come up with a whole bunch of names that are extremely similar to each other, and there sometimes isn't consistency in the naming conventions. One example would be story maps. Sometimes you'll see it where it's story maps one word. Sometimes you'll see it where it's two words. Doesn't seem to be any consistency on that. There's a story map builder and then story map apps, which is essentially the same thing. But then there's also story maps that are built into other kind of the web mapping application functionality of ArcGIS Online. Among those were the classic templates, including Cascade, which was one of my favorites. Let's see if I have an example of that here. This one's a good example. Here, I'm going to expand this and make sure, hopefully everyone can see the screen. Sometimes when there's video, it isn't that clear. But this would be an example of a cascading story map, where you can have nice pictures, maps, zooms. It's just really neat and appealing, as you can see, with rolling text. That it just really conveys the spatial story well. You can do a lot of this in the story map builder, but not quite all of this. You can still have to go back to these older templates that I was showing you here. Some of these, the journal, the tour, this very similar to the map that we sent out, or that was at the end of Shane's presentation, that showed where everybody that was in the workshop is at. This is much like a story map tour, which is the next one I'll show you really quick, since we didn't really go over it. This I'll put this link actually in the chat. Just a second, I have to bring up the chat. There you go. Hold on. There. So if you want to refer to this story map, here it is in the chat. So with this, I usually bring this up and create a new map for every workshop, just because I want to make sure that nothing major is changed in the story map application. I say that laughing because like Shane mentioned earlier, some days you're like a 1, some days you're a 5 when it comes to this stuff. I used to do CartoDB, and literally the night before the workshop, they completely jettisoned the entire layout of the story map application and replaced it with a new one. So I showed up to the workshop and brought it up, and everything was different. And so it was everything I prepared didn't work. So I was very much a 1 on that day. Fortunately, everything seems to be working today. So I assume it'll be closer to a 4 or 5. But this, so I go through and kick the tires, make sure nothing's changed. And in this case, this was the story map that I put up for the participants in the workshop. And we do have quite an international crowd of attendees, many of which are not logged into the session here because I know that they come for signing up and then we'll get the notifications of the YouTube channel when the video comes up. So we have participants from the Greater Bay Area. It'll bring us in here. We got, and just if you're Sebastopol, sorry, that was the one place on here that just was kind of, I don't know if that was, I guess that'd be North Coast a little bit more than Central Valley, but kind of got included in there, of the Greater Central Valley. And you can see how you have these rolling tour options that then appear that zoom you to the different areas. Southern California, we have a large contingent from Southern California for this workshop. Atlanta, Georgia. And you see the pictures in the video. You can put links in there, as you'll see in the exercise in a little bit. Washington, D.C., we got the governmental power hub of the United States with an attendee. New York, and then because this map is interactive, I can also zoom in and out on this and see that the participants are not from New York City, but from Hamptons Bays and in inland from Ithaca. So there's attendees from New York. Ours New Algeria. We've had a number of attendees from Algeria recently. Port Harcourt in Nigeria. And you can see how nicely this just jumps from one area to the next. From Riyadh, Karachi, Anand, India. There's a couple people that came to us from Indonesia. And then the thank you at the end. So in all, though, I put this together that you can look at it just for the fun of it and to just see an example of how a story map might be developed and created in a different format than the one that we'll be doing today. Similar, but different. And that's kind of one of the key takeaways of this, is that once you learn how to develop the story map using the steps that we'll take today, the skills for that are transferable to all different kinds of layouts, like the way that you'd pull in titles and subtitles and pictures and videos. The process is extremely similar on whatever template layout you're using. I just wanted to stress that. So this is like, again, using it to do this is a lot like kicking the tires for going through the story map that we'll be creating today. And the story map we'll be creating today is going to look something like this. By the way, if I go to the Word document that was included, the UCNR Story Map Visualization and Organization Word document, at the top of this, you'll see the URL for this story map. This is what you'll be working towards. And it's nice to bring that up, because if you're working on your story map and you're not sure what it should look like, you can toggle over to one that's already been created. And this was created the last time we did the workshop in May. And so this is what you'll see today. We'll start off by setting up the design, like the text, font, typography, just the feel of it will be done in the design theme sort of functions of the story map builder. And then we'll actually go to building the story map once we've decided that this is the text we want, the size, the color, the way we want to have our quotes laid out, you name it, all these design kind of elements to the story map. But this is what we'll be working towards today, including, actually, I can look at it right now. So if I click on this is Around Me that Andy Lyons put together that is a 3D view of the Kearney Research and Extension Center. There's going to, and CARE is the short acronym for it. It's actually Kearney Agricultural Research Extension Center. But the you can see this kind of sort of 3D view that was taken from a drone, which is really neat. But also below that, if you click on that window, you'll see that there's other views for example, our Lynn Cove Research and Extension Center is here. And this is a particularly beautiful research center as well. And so you get this 3D interaction. One thing to note though, is I don't know how, how this is served up, what kind of service this is on, but if everybody in the workshop tries to click on this at once, it jams it up. And it doesn't have the, I don't know, there's some kind of bandwidth limitation in providing this. So it's, but anyhow, and then you can click off of it to just look at it the way it is. But it's kind of just a neat feature to have this ability to have 3D or interactive kind of videos in here. Pictures, videos, we have a video that we can plug into the story map. You can see how smooth this is in general. It's quite nice. And then extra resources, including the story map tour, a brief version of this where you can go from one to the next. And you can click on these to see how it comes up, and then include hyperlinks in your maps to bring you to the actual pages for those particular research centers. So we have all of that functionality, and we'll be creating all of this today. So that's the kind of the goal, is to have something like what we're looking at here. And you can see all of this. I know it looks like a lot, but that was one of the reasons why we put together all of the images, all of the text, and you'll see that hopefully it, by having all that curated for you, the process of putting together is not that challenging or difficult. It's just, and I sometimes call it, it's not really tedious but it's repetitious, because you'll end up putting in like content in the same ways over and over again. It'll just be different content. Good. Any questions, by the way? All right. I'm going to look at the chat real quick before I start throwing some. Okay, cool. Everyone's digging it, it looks like. All right, but if you do have questions, yeah, go ahead, make sure to let us know. Good. I don't need this right now, but I do need the exercise. I don't really need the exercise. I'm going to be doing most of all of the exercise stuff from memory. I will cover some things that are not in here, but for the most part, I'll be following right along with what the workflow that's included in here. And I'll also be probably providing a few pro tips that are not necessarily in here, but that are handy to know. Good. I already talked about the data, the visualization, organization a little bit of the data that we have. Content creation, that's the first thing that we'll be jumping off with. And that's in our ArcGIS Online session. So if back to hands-on, I'll try to let you know when I'm talking about just info only, and sometimes when it's just hands-on. So back to the hands-on, when you make sure that you have your ArcGIS Online loaded up right in the middle of your screen. That is, unless you're just listening and following along, and we'll do this later, and it's your prerogative. But if you have your ArcGIS Online in the middle of your screen, I'm just going to give you a super fast orientation to this. We have a workshop all on ArcGIS Online, so we're not going to go over much about this. But a couple little things. One is our content is important. This is, you can see story map, web experience, hosted feature layers. There's sometimes, if I go far enough down the list, you'll see shape files. Oh, there's a shape file right there. There's web mapping applications. So this is like basically my glossary, or my list of all of my content that I have personally included in my ArcGIS Online. To keep it organized, I've created folders by clicking and create a new folder, and I have the IGIS training folder, which will have much of this content also included in just kind of like it reorganized just so I can find it more easily. Another way that I'll do that is I'll highlight or I'll star things. So I'll add to my favorites. And then if I'm going to reuse that a bunch in the future, like for example, I was doing a collaborative field maps project that I referred back to over and over again. So I had it in my favorites. So that's just a nice way to kind of keep things organized, either have it in folders or favorite it over here. This is also the place where sometimes you'll create new items or create new apps. And this is one of the ways that you can get to your story map builder, web app builder. Here it is, our ArcGIS story maps. So if I click on that, it'll pop up with the story map builder, but don't click on it yet because we'll be using the dots at the top right-hand corner later on to get going on that. It's the same thing. But then there's also things like Experience Builder, which is partially covered in the Field Maps workshop. And yeah, other options for creating apps. Just so you know that's that. So new items and new apps are in your content. So you have groups. This is valuable when you're working with a selective group of people within your organization. And I say within your organization because there's kind of 3 levels. Well, actually really 4 levels of use for your both your maps, your content that's within the maps, and for your web mapping applications, including story maps. There's personal use. That's the most limited. It's only you can use it. Then there's groups that are like selective groups within your organization. They can have access to the story maps, map elements, you name it. There's permissions for your whole organization to be able to see and use your data. And then you can open it up so it's available to everybody across all of ArcGIS Online. And we'll circle back to that and I'll show you how you can share that at those different kind of nested levels. But one way you can do it is you can set up create a group that's, and this is particularly useful when you're doing things like field maps. When you have a mobile mapping application that you want to go out and you want to have people that are only trained on collecting, say, the specific type of tree data that you want, and you don't want to crowdsource it to everybody that might put in incorrect information that might make mistakes and so forth. So you can have it just to a limited group of people, and then you can share your web map application with just them or the data for the web maps. So that goes within this groups that you can create. And then finally, the last one that we'll do just for today is we'll go to map. And you'll see there's all these across the top. There's this selected variety across the top. The map is where you can create a basic web map. There's other ways to do it, to create web maps, but this is the traditional classic web map viewer. And one thing to mention is if your window is kind of squished down, you won't have like about, content, and legend. For example, if I grab this and I push it over there, you'll see it get squished. But if it gets larger, you'll see the second option is content. And this is what I'm going to want all of you to do right now. So when you're in map, so if notice that it changed to a vertical drop down under for all the content groups, so forth, is now on a vertical drop down. Once you go into my map, if you're not here yet, click map on the ribbon across the top and it'll bring you here, and then click on content. And once you're in content, just hang out here, go down to your folder that has your workshop material that's inside of it. Here it is for me. So your ArcGIS Story Maps workshop. I'm going to kind of drag it over to the side a little bit. And all I want you to do is grab and drag and drop the UCANR Rec Center CSV file over into your content. It'll say copy. And so I'm going to just do that. And it'll pop up an add CSV layer. There's other ways to do this, but this is the easiest. So it brings up your add CSV layer. By default, it should figure out what are the addresses, and it did. And you'll see that zip codes lined up with zip code, address is lined up with address or place. And so that's good to go. And then I just click add layer and it says updating layer. Good. And then you see this little simple pop-up legend come on here. The dots, by the way, you might notice are teeny. They're really small, so they're barely visible, which isn't maybe ideal. So what we'll do is fix that right now. And the way we do that is go up to, so once you've drug that in, this should be the first thing that pops up. You'll have the options under types, and we'll click on that. So you have all of these this color scheme might not be ideal, but it's good enough for now. You can change that if you wanted to, but we're not going to jump into the computer cartography kind of like I don't know, contrast and so forth right now. But what we will do is change the size of it. And the way you do that is we'll click on that little sort of three color rainbow next to count. And here, let's change it from 8 to 20. And then click OK. Good. And so now you have some dots that are just a little bit more clear. Good. And once it looks like that, we can click OK. And then done. And what you have is a very, very basic web map, which is good enough for now. I mean, we can make a much more complex and complete web map with all kinds of different, I don't know, shadows or state lines, or we can change the base map to something else. That's the that would be in the ArcGIS Online workshop or one of the other workshops that we do. Shane does a great computer cartography or a cartography workshop. So there's a bunch of different ways you can learn about that. But for now, all we need is a basic web map. And then we'll have to save it. That's the key thing. Save frequently and often. That's important. So we'll click on save. Once you have this, something that looks like this, click save. And the first time you do it, it'll be save as. And I don't recall what it says to save it as in the directions. It was, let's see, where is that? I'm trying to remember. I try to stay consistent with what the directions say, because then the next step in the directions, it helps, it will help like keep it clear. There it is, the title of your map. So on Control C, on page 9 of the directions, you'll see this. By the way, I've highlighted in red the vast majority of the things that you might want to copy and paste from the directions. That way they're easier to find. I did that both for my own benefit as well as yours. As you can see, it just took me not very long to find it because I was looking for a red text. But I Control C, come over here, Control V for paste. By the way, I've done this so many times now, I have to give it a new version 10, I think, because I was at 8 or 9 last time I checked. And so I'll be creating a new web map, version 10. And now I have to add in tags. I'll say training, junk. I say junk because I keep on adding more and more of the same thing, like version like 1 through 9 or 10. So I don't need a 10th one, but so I want to be able to find it by using the keyword searches in my content in ArcGIS Online. So I add that. By adding tags, it helps you discover your own data once you populate you fill your content up thoroughly like I have. But it's also important if anyone in your organization, in any of your groups, or when it's shared publicly, anyone can find this particular web map. You need to have a tag that's intuitive and easy. And that's how it makes it discoverable for both yourself and everyone else. And it's required. If you type in something, it automatically prompts it for me and pops up. But if you haven't done this, or you haven't added any of these in yet, you'll have to type out the word and then click enter to have it appear. Good. and then save in folder, and I will put it in my ArcGIS training. For those of you that are just getting started, that's not going to be an issue. You can just leave it default, but I put it there just so I know where to go clean it out at. Good. And then I'll save the map. Good. So now we have a map, and this will be the kind of the backbone or underline what we'll be working on in the story map. Good. Now, one more thing that before we take a quick break is I want to go in and share and click share here. This is going to be where I said I'd circle back to how to share it at the different levels. By default, it's only shared to yourself. So only you can access this. When it's ready, then you can select someone from, say, content 2. I just put a random group in there, or ArcGIS content. You can share it to just a group. You can share it to your whole organization or share it to everyone. I'm just going to leave it at everybody right now because why not? I don't care. There's nothing in here that isn't like, sensitive information. This is important. Sometimes when you're working on a project, there's reasons for not having your content be publicly available. And I mentioned a project that I was kind of consulting on back at UC Davis once upon a time, where people had domestic victim violence data that was very sensitive for very good reasons. And so they had to take extra precautions to scrub their data before it could even get into this type of environment where, again, you can imagine. And there's a lot of other cases too, where it's important to keep your data very private. But in this case, the location of our research center's public knowledge, I can leave it public in case anybody here wants to access it. Like I could email you or my mom or anyone the web app, and they can open it up on their computer. But then once I've set the sharing values, I can leave it there. But this is another one that I want to show you, is to create a web app. So go ahead and click on create a web app, and you'll see all these basic, if you're in the configurable apps, these basic chart viewer, various ones that pop up. There's the web app builder that will give you other options that you could create. You can get started. And then there's you can use a dashboard. So I can set something up here in web app builder or the configurable apps. I'm going to go with web app builder for now. And this, by the way, is a little info only. You can be following along like this, but I wouldn't worry about it too much right now because it's not going to really be built upon. But I just want to show you because it is one of the pathways to creating story maps as well, or something like a story map. So I bring up the web app builder. I'm going to just do junk at the end, just as a reminder, this is trash and it doesn't convolute anything else. And I'm going to get started, and it'll come up here and give me some different options that are available, including dashboard themes, which is kind of a different sort of theme that we could do. The only reason I'm really bringing this up right now is because once you create a web mapping application with the widgets, you can have coordinates, navigation, other thing, home, all these various options that are available in there, and attributes, and you can even do in map frames within your map. But once you have all of this, you can add these widgets in these other spaces and save this and include this in your story map that you'll build in the other, one environment map. So this is just so you can you do it a little different here. So I'm going to back up. Use the back button if you followed me this far. I'll do it again. Come on. Yeah, I'm going to leave. I had to double click to get back. There you go. It'll bring me back to this. If I look at my share, it should have the same settings that I'd left it on, and I can click done. And it's already saved for V10, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now we can go on to our story, actually building our story map, because we have the underlying map here. You kind of got a feel for some of the stuff that goes into a story map and from the spatial side of things. And now we'll just get into just plugging all the content and design stuff into a story map. when we come back and say 5 minutes at 2:40. Sound good? And if anybody has questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat, or just unmute yourself and just let me know. I'll be hanging out. Good. All right, let's get moving again. All right, I just kind of referred to the directions to refresh my memory, because the next section I am going to have to do a fair bit of copying and pasting, and you will as well if you're following along. So the next section is going to be starting your story map design, which is really a neat aspect or kind of feature to the story map builder that that wasn't there in the past. And yeah, it's really neat, especially if you're designing stuff with a kind of to be consistent with your organization's colors and themes. And so what we're going to do, once you're in ArcGIS Online, we're at the map right now. At the top left-hand corner, and hopefully everyone's back. At the top left-hand corner, there's the home button. Click the drop-down arrow and select content, just to get ourselves out of this, because we want to bring it up so we can see that cluster of 9 dots at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Good. So everybody, make sure you get back to this. So you do the drop-down at the top left-hand corner, go to the content, and now we'll click on those 9 dots at the top right-hand corner and select the ArcGIS Story Maps icon, and it'll pop up in a new tab. And this is going to look different for you than it does for me, because I have a variety of story maps that I've worked on in the last year or so. And so they've kind of added up, including the one that the workshop participants map that was the last thing that I worked on right here. So automatically it'll come up under your stories. There's also collections, which is kind of like the folders, subfolders that you can organize your stories into, but I don't have quite enough of those yet to start a collections set. So if you have a bunch of story maps that all kind of should be grouped together, that's how you put them in there. And then themes, and themes is one of the first things that we're going to work on. You can see there's a whole bunch. I have a bunch of like UCANR Communications version 8. That's the most recent one I did that we'll be working on something similar here shortly. But this is where you will be creating and editing themes sometimes. There's another workaround to get to that, which we'll do in another way right now to save a little bit of time. And that's to go back to your stories, the top left-hand corner. So is there anybody that's anybody behind right now? Has everybody got a chance to get here? Make sure to throw in the chat if you're lost. Good, because this is one spot. When we come back from breaks and we jump into it, then that's sometimes people lose track of where we're at. So from here, we'll use the nine dots to bring up our story maps. And what we're going to do is create a new story and select start from scratch. Good. And when it comes up, it's going to look a little something like this. I'm going to get my zoom out of the way because it's, I'm going to put it on the bottom or something like that out of the way so I can see what I'm working on. Good. So when this comes up, you're going to have an automatic design, but this is not the design that we necessarily want. The design we want is actually we're going to select by clicking the design at the top left, or no, kind of top center-ish. It's going to pop up from the right side. And the first thing we'll do is come over to the right and select full. And then we'll select navigation. Good. This is slightly out of order from what the directions say, but to kind of alleviate the possibility of some confusion that I've seen other people have in the past, we want to label the story map. So where's the name? I have to go down quite a ways to find it. Oh, what the heck? Oh man, I thought there was trying to remember what the name of the story map is supposed to be. Oh, I know how to find out what the story map should be. UCANR's Kearney Agriculture and Research Extension Center story map. So we can use that as the name of the story. So we'll just paste that in the top. And I'll say copy and paste as plain text. The reason I did that is, oh, and I have to do, unfortunately, V, I don't know, 10. Or just, I'll just give it just a 9 or something like that. Just because I have so many of them that have come before this. Good, but you don't have to do that. Again, I'm going to bring up design. And you see it automatically saved it up here. That's one of the things they say in the past. And it's funny, it was when I was watching the last time I did the workshop, I was lamenting about the fact that they don't have an undo, and now they do. It's saved, but it's still draft, and the draft is also reflected down there underneath your name. Right? Just put the title in there now, and we can do it later, but it's nice to just have it added in there right away. Because then again, like I said, it alleviates a teeny bit of confusion for some people. Now we're going to add in a logo, and we'll come back to themes. So we're going to upload a logo. For this, I'm going to click upload logo. And by default, it goes to the last place that I was searching for stuff. And since I worked on this earlier today, it brought me to the workshop media folder. But you should find that in your C drive. So you might have to navigate to this in your C drive under Story Maps Workshop Media. And once you get here, if it isn't already showing up as a large icon, select large icon from the options, assuming your windows are similar to mine. You know, I can't speak for people that are using Mac or iOS stuff, but yeah, so you make sure you have a large icon. And then we select the UCANR logo. So again, we select upload logo, navigate to the workshop media folder, and then we select UCANR logo, and then click OK or upload. Do that early is a good idea. Good. Now we're going to jump into the themes. So we're going to manage my themes. Click here. And I have a bunch of themes, including this UCANR communications theme, V8. I'm going to be doing communications V9 now. So we'll go up and we'll click create new theme or new theme, top right-hand corner. Good. And now this is, and as we make changes here, we're going to see colors and layout kind of design stuff change in the right-hand side on the map. So this is your story's title. The color will change when we change the colors in the theme design functions to the right. I'm going to shift this a little to the right because this is where I'm going to need to be able to see my my directions to the left, including the hex codes and so forth. So if I scroll up, good. We've already done this, done this, done this, done this. There we go. This is where we're at. Story map from scratch, design, publish. We already full. Navigation's already clicked. Now, good. Oh, I forgot to put in the hyperlink. That's okay, not important. Theme builder, good. Now we're to the right spot. So colors. So here's what we're going to do. So starting at like 5.7 on page 14. So we're going to be working with the background and header colors. So under the accent color, so if you could go to your directions, like I said, make sure that you can copy and paste from here. We're going to go over that 005 FAE, Control C. Give everyone a second to figure that out. So that's page 14, kind of toward the bottom in red, 0547. and we're going to have this drop down. I'll shift it a little bit just so you can see both of them at the same time. So what we're going to be leaving the background and header colors as white, which is fine. But then under accent color, we're going to change that to this hex code. So if you see under the untitled theme, we'll go down and we're going to set the accent color as the hex code that I just copied. Control V, and then click enter. Or click off of it, actually, is what we'll have to do there. And then it changed it to a kind of a bluish color. Good. Now we'll continue down. So hopefully this isn't too hard to follow along with. I know you have a lot of screens to work with here, but so we're just going to go back and forth between the directions on the left and the theme design on the right. So we did accent color to the first hex code, and then use the drop down for the optional accent colors, which will be the next two, will be these next two hex codes. So I'll copy, Control C, do the first optional drop down, and Control V to paste that in there, enter, or click off of it. Actually, you have to click off of it. Sometimes you have to enter in some things in the story map builder and sometimes not. Now for the second color, Control C, second color, optional, Control V. Good. So you have a darker blue, a yellow, and a lighter blue. These, by the way, are the colors from the palette that our UCANR publication, the communications services of our CSIT program, use for Cal Agriculture or California Agriculture, the journal publication, which my opinion is has really nice color scheme. Good. So we have those in there. Hopefully everybody got that. So this is just leave the background colors the same, the header color the same, but then accent color and optional accents have changed here with these new hex codes. Now we'll go down a little bit further to typography. So we'll click the drop down or the arrow for typography and it'll drop down. By default, it should be at Avenir Next, which is fine. I like that. However, the title color it'd be nice if it got changed. You don't want whatever that weird kind of greenish, whatever color that is. Control C. I'm going to shift this a little bit so you don't have to see it keep jumping back and forth. So I'll do the drop down for the title and paste that hex code in here. Control V, enter. I keep on doing enter, but it's not necessary. Oops. So one thing to note is that there is an online web service or app, you might call it, that will help you create color palettes designs called Color Brewer. It's fantastic. We put in a note here, and this is where you can find hex codes very easily. It's an excellent resource. That includes for kind of creating stuff that both goes together well with good contrast, including for people that have color blindness. So it's a neat kind of option. Anyways, I digress. Back to, so now for the paragraph text and caption text. Oops. We want to make sure that it's non-serif. So it's like the default's fine. There's no other hex codes that we have to worry about that for paragraph. It's fine the way it is, but you know what, I'm going to just make sure, change it to black, because I prefer the black color. And then I'll click off of it. It's like it was already close to black, but I like the black just a little stand out. So all I did is I clicked the top left corner. Good. Now we're going to expand the buttons option. And let's click the middle one, the kind of rounded edge is a little nicer button. You can see how it changes on the right side of my screen from square to kind of rounded when I select that to very rounded. The semi-rounded, in my opinion, looks the most professional. Going further down for quotes, I'll click on quotes. What we'll do is we'll select the first one that's already the default, which is fine, but let's add in a hex code for the design. So use custom color. So you have to click check this to bring up the custom color, and then the drop down, and that's where you put in that hex code. So you see you have to check that use custom color if anyone's kind of like toggling between things. So under quotes, we're going to go with the first option, use custom color, and then we'll take the hex code from 510 on page 15 of the directions at the bottom, and then paste that in there. Like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of redundancy. I wouldn't call it tedious, but it's definitely a lot of redundancy to get used to this. But just know that this will give a very nice style. And it's good to learn all these steps, and repetition definitely leads to confidence to be able to do something like this again. Good. As far as links go, we don't have to worry about that. We'll skip that, but we'll go to quote, their separators. And I like the 3 dots across here is nice, but let's change the color of that because by default, it's got that blue color. And for 511, I'm going to Control C. So on page 16 at the top, the FDB D10, we use the use custom color checkbox again and add that hex code in there. Control V. You can see now it changed to yellow dots. See what I mean? You get used to Control C, Control V if you are copy and paste. There's a lot of it here. Good. So now that's all there is to it. We've created the theme. That was the whole objective here. But one more thing that we need to do is give it a title. And I'll just call it UCANR Communications. V9 in my case. You don't have to do that, but just that's the theme that it's going to be. Good. And then it automatically saves it, just so you know. And then there's base map and logo, but we don't have to worry about that. Good. All right. So now we have a theme to work off of, and we can go back, go to themes on the tab. Actually, we can go back to, we don't even have to, we could X out of it actually, but we'll go back, just switch actually to tabs. So at the top, we're on here. We could go back and you'll see your theme pop up in here, but instead we'll go up on your tabs of your Windows browser, click on this, and you will see that we can add this theme to our story map now. And then we'll take a quick 5-minute break. And the way to do that is then you just go to Browse Themes. You should have the most recent one. Where's my V9? What? V9's right here.
You have to refresh.
Yeah, you're right. Good. And then I'll go to design. Everything else should have held itself. It's still not there as my most recent one. Oh, maybe because, oh, that is odd. It doesn't matter. I have one. Tell me if anyone has any trouble where your theme didn't pop up. Let me know. Because that is really strange that it doesn't come up on mine after I know it's right here under my themes. Oh, I know what's wrong. Oh, shoot. Okay. I had to go back into the theme. I got to publish it. What was I thinking? So you'll have to do the same thing. So go into your theme, go up to publish, and then I can set it to private, search for groups. I don't need to just publish it the way it is right there, and it's fine. Good. Now, so hopefully everyone caught that. If you go to your themes, publish what you just have that's still open. And now when I go to my themes and I refresh it, it should pop up. Go to design, browse themes. There it is. And I'll select that and click it again. And this will be my theme. Good. Nothing will change right now, but anyways, we'll come back in about 5 minutes and we'll continue on. We'll actually flesh out and create the whole story map. And we are really nicely on time for this workshop. There's so much information, so many steps. It's easy to get like on sidetracked and then use burn up time that makes it hard for you to get your story maps built. But we're right on time now. Great. So 3:06, I'm going to step away really quick and I'll be right back. All right, so we'll get going again. Now we're going, and I mentioned that for a reason, is because the next step, we're going to do even more copying and pasting, and I mean a lot of copying and pasting now for the rest of the workshop. And I'm doing most of all of this stuff from memory, because it's too hard to read the directions, then toggle back and forth, and it's just that. Speaking of lack of efficiency, that wouldn't be efficient. So now I'm going to shift my screen a little bit to the left because I'm going to be using this visualization and organization Word document a lot now. And just as a reminder, this, if you want to copy and paste, see how the map should look, paste that somewhere so you can refer to it. That might be good too. And I'm going to actually do that right now. I'm going to copy this and drag it up onto this. So here's what the map or the story map will look at like when we're done in my working windows. Here's my my theme, which we're done with. We've published it. Now we're in the actual story map here in design. Good. So I already had you do the title. I put the title in there just because sometimes when we take the break and we come back, or if someone gets closed out of it, they don't know where their story map is or what the name of it is. So, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the title. We already did this first part and we're fine. And how this is going to work is with the map visualization, we'll have each of the story map elements will be listed along the left in general, and then the media or the text or whatever we need to plug in there is going to be along the right, starting with the title. So we already copied and pasted this title in there, so we don't have to do that again, but we'll be repeatedly copying and pasting from this Word document into our story map and continue and proceeding onward. So hopefully everyone already has put this in there. If you haven't, Control C and then Control V to put it in right at the title, the title, the header of your map here. Next, we're going to insert a photo. And the way to do that is we'll toggle to this screen and scroll down it and say add cover image or photo. And it describes here title image is the name of it. So we'll click on this and it'll come up. And what I might recommend is bringing up the workshop media folder I'm going to kind of scoot it a little bit because it's nice just to be able to look at it and drag and drop. It seems to be the most efficient way to do this. And by the way, all of these pictures and there's pieces of media are all in alphabetical order, so it's easy to find, but it says title image. So what we'll do is we'll just grab that, drag and drop it in, and then click add. So remember, so you just click add media, click, drag and drop it in here. Give everyone a second to do that because it takes a second sometimes to navigate to bring up your folder with the workshop media. So again, what I did, I can undo that so you can see it. If you've already done it, don't undo it. I'm just going to do this for those of you that maybe are just coming back to your computers. What I did is add cover, image, or video. I brought up my workshop media folders, the C drive, story maps, workshop folder, workshop media, image title, just drag and drop it in and click add. Pretty easy, right? Yeah, I say easy, but it really is. The navigating between all these panes that we have to deal with is not necessarily easy. Good. So that's in. Now I'm going to click back to my, see how what I mentioned before, it's nice to have my my windows kind of leafed upwards. So now I have my Word document here at the top that I can work off of. Now we'll go down and we have a subtitle is the next option down. So I'll copy and paste exploring the UCANR-IGIS, Control C. And here's the subtitles. It's already gave a prompt. Start with a short introduction or subtitle. This time though, just as a suggestion, we're going to right click and paste as plain text. And it'll put it in there appropriately. There's if you Control V, it will put it in as just paragraph text sometimes. It's not necessary, it won't turn out quite the way you want it. But as you put it in as plain text, then it's good. Good. Now we're going to go down. And so then we'll say there's add headings to your story. The way you do that is you create that down here with this little plus. So I'm going to shift this all over actually a little further this direction so I can again toggle back and forth more easily. So heading, background, UCANR's rec system. And I'm going to Control C. So if you see what I'm doing, I'm just going to be back and forth like we did before. Control C to take the background. This is the heading that's we're going to add in here. So then we'll go down to the plus sign on the working window. Add text. Right click. Place this plain text. We'll do it this way first. Well, there's another way we'll do it in a second. Then I'm going to highlight over the top of it and select heading. Oops, did I say it? Yes, that should be a heading. Good. Now, if you notice, then you see that popped up here. The reason for that is because we selected the top, like, well, you won't remember maybe, but back in the directions, we clicked the include navigation. Well, that's because this is like a bookmark that'll jump you to each section. As we include new headings throughout the story map, those will all appear across the bottom up here for shortcuts to jump down to the right spot. Good. And then we'll do a subheading. So now we just add in the heading. And again, we're going to continue all the way down through here with the prompt, what's on the left. And then we'll see in a little bit, we'll see where it gets a little teeny bit more complex. So subheading, we'll Control C. Come down here, click the plus, do text. This time, what I'll do is click the drop down and select subheading. And then right click and click as plain text. you'll see that sometimes it'll glitch. There's glitches that are involved in here. The subheading shouldn't be black like that. So what I'll do is I'll go over the top of it, and it's listed as paragraph, and I have to go up and click subheading. It's kind of odd, huh? I don't know why it does that. It just does. I thought they'd fix it by now, but they clearly haven't. But and it used to not do that a long time ago, and then it has for pretty much this whole year. It's the copy and paste thing. I don't know why. I don't know. But then again, most of the time, a lot of people, they expect people to just be working in this environment and not off of this kind of organizational document. But and so they expect people to work straight in the ArcGIS of the story map builder. But we found if you have something like this organizational document, then you can replace these headings, subheadings, text, but this will give you a guideline to build whatever thematic story map you want and have something turn out pretty dang nice, like we're seeing over here on the left, to whatever theme you're interested in, or whatever topic or regarding whatever topic you're interested in. And so again, this in theory could be a valuable resource for all of you if you say you wanted to do it for your own programs, and you could just change around the titles, the subtitles, the headings. And if you are working collaboratively with a whole group of people, you might put this into like a Google Doc where someone can fill out all of those. And when you have the story map building abilities, you can throw it together and wow everybody with the actual results, and without honestly too much trouble, as you'll see here. The hard part again is always coming up with this content on that we're looking at on the right. Good. Then we'll go on and do the text next. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but we'll highlight over the top of all the text. Don't count the hyperlink at the bottom. We don't need to worry about that. So just this section right here, and you can either right click and copy if you want, or Control C. We'll come over to the side and we'll add it in. Add block of text. Right click. Add as plain text, but here, I'm going to show you paste. I'm going to do paste, and you'll see that it'll be all messed up. Oh, they fixed that. Okay, maybe it won't be all. Well, it is kind of messed up. The spacing of the last section wasn't quite right, but that's okay. In the past, it's added a whole bunch of returns in there. So they have fixed one thing. Good. They're always evolving the application. Good. So now we have the text in there, and you'll see that it's in paragraph. If I highlighted it, and wow, I'm not seeing option for, okay. So they fixed one thing and then made it so you can't edit it in another way. All right. So I'm going to do undo there. Undo till that text disappears. How many of these? What the heck? That's very strange. Okay, I'm just going to delete. Oh, now the paragraph stuff pops up. So I should have paragraph pop up. There it goes. Okay, you just have to highlight it. So I'm going to delete that. So automatically what I should do is I'll right click and add as plain text. Oops, and it didn't include the last section of the recs. I know this is this might not be the best way to go about it, but I was seeing to demonstrate how it can break, and it didn't break in the same way that it always has before. I'm going to cover this up, right click, paste as plain text, and it's strangely not including this last section. Control C. Oh, interesting. It didn't include the return there. All right. Hopefully I'll give you a second to get all the text in there just the same way as it is here. You have to highlight it to make sure that it shows the paragraph option now instead of clicking the little button at the top like the way it used to be able to be done. And then once we have this in, we'll add a hyperlink. And the hyperlink, the way you do that is you'll see over here on the organizational tab, the little URL. We'll click Control C. And we'll go up. Actually, we could do it up above 9 research and extension centers, but we'll do it right here. Let's go over the top of this. And you see the little chain link. Click on that. And then Control V. I kept on saying click enter earlier when I was putting in the hex codes. That's because in a lot of places, this included, you have to put enter in or the hyperlink won't work. So now we've added a hyperlink in there and it will take you to that the Rex URL. If that was clicked on in the story map, we're not going to worry about it right now. Good. Now let's add in a quote. Hopefully this is going well for everybody, even with that little whatever this was when trying to break it and not breaking it correctly. So we have the text, the quote, now or the hyperlink. Now let's add in a quote. Again, we'll go through here, Control C. Click the plus, do text. Under text, click the drop down and select quote near the bottom. Right click and click paste as plain text. So this time it didn't actually put it in there the right way. This is a little bit more familiar in the weird glitches that it had before. So what I'll have to do is highlight the whole thing. Click the drop down and then select quote. There you go. And now we have the quote goes in there. So remember, you have to highlight over the whole text and then select quote to make it actually turn up as a quote. Scrolling downward. So we're going to treat this next text section as actually 2 sections of text. There's the bullet points and the text, the paragraph text at the top. So what we'll do is on this one, we're going to highlight. The centers are also focal points, this section. Control C. Head over to the story map working area. Click plus. Add text, right click, paste as plain text. And now we're going to add in the bullet points. But the trick is if you copy and paste this from here with bullet points already in here, it's not going to like it. Because it's going to try to put bullet points and then another set of bullet points. So before we do that, we need to go over to the Word document, backspace, 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 and then copy, Control C. So we try to copy with the bullet points in there, it'll just create one set of bullet points and another set of bullet points. It'll be weird. So we'll go in and click on the plus here. After we've copied, we've removed the bullet points. Click the plus. Select text, right click, paste as plain text. Now, what I'll have to do is I will go over the top of this, select from the drop down, bullet list, and then we'll have to look in here and see where the breaks are to add enters in there. And this is different than the way it's done this in the past too. Academics. So we'll click enter. After academics. And then after states. researchers. What the heck is going on? Oh, we have to go up further. Our centers, county-based academics, campus-based academics. So you have to look at the list to the side and then put those in this way. Maybe a control V would have actually worked out in this case. And then researchers from the USDA. Good. That would match the list that we have over here. Good. So slightly tedious to try to get that in there. Bullet points in the history of this app have been notoriously a pain to put in because it's just difficult to get the text to copy in. And again, I think it'd be fine if it was being fully developed within the story map builder. The issue there is it doesn't have, you can't really collaboratively put it together over here, but also it doesn't have spell check. And I don't know about you all, but I'm terrible when it comes to that. I just put typos in all kinds of things. When I type stream of consciousness. Anyway, so continuing onward. So now we're going to add in a photo. And so this is going to actually be kind of like a separator, honestly. It's going to be, you don't have to have those three little dots that we kind of did earlier and we'll add later in this in the story map. You can actually have a photo that drags across. And the way you can look at that is if we scroll down, we've got to here, we want to add this photo in now. So the way to do that is we'll just click here and add an image. Pretty simple. So we add under media image. We'll go to our media folder. And the veggies is the one that we want. And we'll just drag and drop it in there and click add. So again, we went to the media folder, just dragged and dropped veggies into add picture. And once it's in there, by default, it's kind of smaller than I would prefer. So what I'll do is instead of having the small, we'll click on the medium and it'll span all the way across the map, the story map. Good. Switch back to my, so we've added in there. Now, one thing that you can do is add in alternative text. And the reason for this is that sometimes when these kinds of things pop up on phones or for the visually impaired, it might be important, but you can add in an alternative text behind the in place of the image. So what I'll do is under photo, I'll copy and paste the products cultivated in UCANR's extension centers. I'm going to Control C that. Go down to the image and under the options, the toolbar, there's going to be an option for alternative text and I can Control V there and save it. And then we can leave the add captions blank. It won't, then nothing will pop up there. Good. Going well for everyone? I had to do a little cough there. Let's do one more section here until we get to the slide car. And then we'll take a break and then finish up the story map. Good. So after that, we're going to add in another heading. Do about Kearney Rec. Control C. Plus text. Right click, add as plain text. Highlight it and set it as a heading. And you can see that popped up at the top of the screen. Kind of like a freeze pane. Then we'll do a subheading of location, Control C. So from the document, subheading location. plus text, right click, add plain text, highlight it, and then say hubs subheading. So you used to be able to just select the heading or subheading and then paste in there. And why that you can't do that anymore, I do not know. You sometimes can if you, by the way, if you copy all of this and put it into a like notepad document or a notepad app, and then whatever underlying formatting stuff that Word is put into it will let it work, but that doesn't always work either. I experimented with it last May when we did the workshop, and it still was a hassle. Anyways, I digress again. So now to text, let's add in this text under location. Kearney Research and Extension Center is located in Parlier, 330 acres. That text, Control C, head over here, plus text, right click, plain text. This time it's supposed to be paragraph text, so we can just leave it as default black colored. And then we're going to add in the Rec Resources Story Map here. So the Rec Resources Story Map Workshop Web Map. So this is going to be a little different because it's going, and I'll just go with the directions that are in the other document so we don't have to toggle back and forth. But this time we'll go down here and we'll select plus. And this time we're going to put in a map. We'll select map. The nice thing is the most recent map that you worked on should pop up as your first option. And so it should be your UCANR story map version, in my case, version something or other. And I'll select that and it'll pop up. It'll take a second. You can adjust the zoom a click or two or not. I think the default is good. And then that's all that we need to do right there. Good. And then you don't need to edit it in ArcGIS, but the problem is my zoom's covering up the place the map. There it is. Good. Now it's too big though. We don't want it to be this big. So what we're going to do is go over here and select float left. Good. And then it'll be on the left side of your screen. And we're going to have, for the map, the caption below is going to be Kearney, the CARE location. CARE is short for Kearney. We'll just take the acronym for now. Caption, CARE location. Underneath it, we'll just go over the top of that. Control V, we'll add it in there, it's fine. But as you can see, we have too many spots. It's like that doesn't tell you what we're looking for. We're really looking for is the little orange one in the triangle in the middle. So what we're going to need to do is edit that to get to the right spot. So we'll go up and click on the edit. And so we will actually zoom in to where there's the first one closest to Fresno. I know that many of you or almost all of you might not know where the Kearney Rec is, but it's the one that's right next to Parlier. But once we have it zoomed in here and then we place map, you'll see it'll be a much better reference map on here. So it's going to be Kearney oriented. Good. So then we can add in a subheading over to the side. I'm going to skip the alternative text. You guys already saw how you could do that. You can just do the gearbox and add in alternative text, but we don't need to worry about that right now. We'll put in a subheading, research at CARE, Control C. Continue story, text, right click, paste as plain text, highlight it, and select subheading. Good. And then we can add in this last bit of text that runs down here. Copy all of this, Control C. And underneath, plus text, right click, plain text. There we go. And then let's take just a few minute break. Let's take a break until 3:40, and then we'll come back and we'll do the sidecar and the video, and then we'll be about set. Good. Any questions? Check the chat. Okay, so there's a question. Is there a way to have a map pictures with a custom size? Now you just have to pick between the options they provide you. You can kind of adjust some things sometimes, but you can set like medium, small. So yes, there's a certain degree, like right now I could select, I don't know which one this is set as. It's probably at small. Oh man, no, that's much bigger.
Yeah, there are some limitations on
Yeah.
control of pictures in the GUI itself or the graphic user interface. Some people have had some luck resizing the images in a graphics program and bringing them in. But part of the problem is if you, like, let's say you're trying to make it smaller, then at some point it's going to resample it bigger anyways to a certain point, and then it becomes pixelated. So images are probably one of the most difficult things to get just right.
Yeah, it's there's a couple things I wish it was able to do. One would be zoom levels would be nice if it just didn't jump zooms so drastically in some cases. Another thing is having more flexibility in adjusting the size of these pieces, these kind of like story map elements that we're putting in there. The other thing that I'd really like to see is ways to indent, to create kind of custom indentations within this. And the one what my biggest pet peeve before was not having an undo option. And so at least they got that one. Hopefully those other ones will come up at some point someday.
Sean, can I ask a question that's skipping ahead?
Sure.
While we're on break? So I was working on the, gosh, what's it called? The map tour piece.
Okay.
And I was noticing that when I'm trying to add the title and the text to describe the different locations, I don't know if it's just a glitch, but I'll be typing in the text from the Word doc we have, and all of a sudden the cursor will just jump out of that. And then I just have to click back into it. So it might just be a glitch, but I'm wondering if that's a known glitch. I guess.
Actually, I've seen that before.
Okay.
And I don't know why it happens. I actually thought they'd fix a lot of these little glitches because Esri's famous for kind of putting everything out in beta form pretty early, and there's lots of glitches. And and the funny thing is, I noticed after preparing for this workshop this week that some of the glitches are still the same as they were in May when I last really went through the workshop thoroughly, and some of them are just different. And so they fixed and didn't fix or change things, so it's just they're different.
Okay, cool. Just making sure there wasn't something I was missing that I could do.
Yeah.
But yeah, not too surprising. All right, thank you.
No problem. Well, I guess we'll get going. We'll finish it up in the next less than 20 minutes. It won't take very long to do the next section. So here we are. We're going to be working with a slide text now. So we're going to set up a slide media to the right. And then we're going to the round me that I showed you earlier that Andy put together, which is really neat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. Actually, I have to enter. Come on. I have to get down underneath the photo. Come on. All right. What the heck? Hold on a second. So this should be the slide car, but okay. So not to be confused with slide text. It says in here slide text, but really it's referring to sidecar. So we're going to add that in, and we're going to use the docked one. That's the first option. Click done, and then it will pop up this this view that we're looking at here. And from here, the first thing that we'll do is we'll add in the slide media. That's just the easy part, and that's the iframe that again Andy Lyons put together for us. And Control C. So again, we're under the we did sidecar. So you did the plus, almost the second from the very bottom. Click sidecar. That'll pop up here. Then we're going to go to add for the media. Image. Oh no, we're going to do embedded. Almost did image or video. Embedded. And then Control V to add in the iframe. And click OK. It'll take a second for it to come up, but then once it's done, it's good. We'll skip any kind of alternative text. We don't need to worry about that. And now we'll start adding in the sliding text. We'll start off with a subheading. So care from above, Control C. If you can see that over there, the sidecar, the text, the start one, plus text, right click, plain text, highlight it, and then we'll select subheading. Good. Back to the document. Again, we're going to do in bullet points, so we'll have to delete the bullets. And I'm going to experiment, but I think I have an idea on how to make this work this correctly this time. Highlight those. So see, I deleted the bullets. Control C. Then we'll do plus text. And this time we'll just do Control V. See, there's the, oh, well, that didn't quite work. There we go. I have to back up. Maybe not. I'm going to have to artificially, yeah, just do bullets then. Highlight it all. I had to combine them together, bullet list, and then click my enter manually to add the bullet in there. Good. I'll undo these so this document's good for later on. So there we have the two bullets under care from above. We'll add in another subheading and more media. The way to do that is, so we have the sidecar here. We can add in more by clicking plus, and that'll add in a new sidecar that we're going to put in a greenhouse, the PNG for the image for the media. So we'll do the media first. Click add. Image or video this time. We'll have to go to our workshop media folder and find greenhouse, drag and drop that in. Now that's quite a bit of steps right there, toggling between a lot of frames, so give you a second. So we got the media from the media folder, add in the greenhouse and click add. We have a nice pretty picture. Go back to my Word document and I will copy and paste the greenhouse operations, Control C, plus text, right click, plain text, this routine, highlight and do subheading again. I'll copy and paste the bullet point. Actually, I have to delete the bullet point. Copy, Control C, add text, right click, plain text, highlight, and select bullet list. Good. That funny glitch that I've seen in the past, these two little dots just appeared randomly that are floating there. If you can see that in the zoom. So then we have these, they're not going to really show up on the web map though, I found. It's just, they're just some kind of weird background glitch. Good. So there we have another one, and then we can add one more slide car. And that would be the Desert Research and Extension Center video. So on this one, we'll add one more sidecar plus, and we'll add the DREC video so that we do add. So we clicked it down here, and then we're going to add in image or video. Browse your files. It can go to the last place you were at. We'll do it this way this time, or you can drag and drop it in. The DREC video is the last one there, or the second from the top. Open, and then click add. And by the way, it's going to take a minute for this to add into the map, but you don't have to worry about it. It's going to, you can still continue working and it won't hold anything up. It'll do that in the background. So we can continue working by copying and pasting the DREC Research and Extension Center subheading. Control C. Add text. Right click, plain text. And highlight, click subheading, good. And then we'll add in these 2 bullet points that are we're going to have to get rid of the bullets. Copy, Control C. Right click, add as plain text. Again, we're going to have to highlight this and select bullets. Right click, bullet list. And we have to figure out where the bullet separation was. And that was similar, was the return point. Good. Now we have 3 dots that are magically floating there. Good. And good. So now we have all of this. The last one is, and this isn't going to take very long at all, because it's just redundant. It's over and over again. We're not going to do it for all 9 research centers, even though if you look at this, you scroll down, you see you have this already. You have the greenhouse operations, the desert rec stuff. The last thing we're going to add in here is the extra resources and the button. We'll do both of those, the button real quick, and then the extra resources and the story map, kind of the tour. But we're not going to have to do desert rec, South Coast rec, Hansen rec, all of those. It doesn't make sense to do that in here. It would be it's not a good use of your time. But what we can do is switch back to this document. God dang it, stuff's missing. So we got to add in some text on our story map. Going back to here, I'm going to scroll down a little past. So we have to grab the scroll over here. We can't use the roller on there. It'll just keep on rolling. We use the to the right. We'll copy the text here to learn more about Kearney Agriculture and Research Center. Copy this. I got to get my zoom out of the way again. I got to figure out what I can do with my zoom that won't be covering up everything I need it when I need it. Copy that text. Add text here. Right click, plain as plain text. Good. And then we'll add a button. A button's pretty easy to add. We'll just click plus, and button's the second one in. Click there. And then you can add visit Kearney's website. By the way, this is sometimes if you're going to make something like provide a gift to your organization, you could put that in there and add the URL to a survey that leads to where someone could provide gifts. So we just added the button with the text. We'll add the separator, which is really easy. The plus. Separator is the third one down. The 3 dots are right there. Good. We'll do one more heading, extra resources. Copy. Plus. Is this, I know I'm so used to just saying, okay, I'm like copy, paste. Hopefully you probably get the idea. I think most of you are probably working ahead on this anyways, but because you get the idea, you can just copy and paste back and forth and just wait for, if you get confused, you can wait for me to catch up to you. But so extra resources, copy over to the map. So I'm going to add in a text that I'll press plain text, make that a heading. Then that extra resources will pop up there. Subheading, other rec locations, control or copy. Text, I'll add in the subheading. Highlight, set subheading, good. And then we'll do just a plain paragraph text. So there's this standard text, control C, plus and text. Right click, add as plain text, good. And then the last thing is the story map tour of the different locations here. We'll start off with the desert rec. And the way we'll do that, we'll just do 2 of these, and then that's all and then the rest, the same process remains the same all the way through. So what we'll do is do plus, roll all the way down to the bottom and go to map tour. We'll select start from scratch. We could use the guided, but I prefer the Explorer. So select Explorer, next, and then the default of list is good. And click done. Good. We'll enter in the map that we wanted from that we created earlier. I mean, we don't want to create that map for nothing. So we'll select on the map options. We'll select base map. So by default, it'll say human geography light. But if we click on it, then we'll have the option of browse more maps. And it'll give you the option of the story map that we created, or the base map that we created earlier. Good. The default zoom, you can't change that right now, which is not a problem, but it's okay. And we'll click done. Good. So now over to the left. So we have the first one is an untitled tour point. So the title is going to be Desert Rec. Control C. We'll click on this. And the title, Control V. Oops. Paste as plain text. What the heck? Why Desert Rec? Why wouldn't it take that? Control C. Still not letting me do it. Okay, that's odd. Oh, I guess it might have to do it in order. My bad. Okay, add image or video. So we'll click add image. Browse your files, or you can go to the file directory, and we'll just click Desert Rec. No, not Desert, not the video, the other one, the first one. Click open. Good. And add. Now we'll select add location. And we can zoom in on the very bottom one. This is down in near the Imperial Valley. We can just click down here for a point, and then you can use the current zoom level is what I prefer. And once we've added that, where time is just about up. Good. We are all set. I have to select add location. And then for the description, then we should be able to put in a title, hopefully. Do I have to type it in? Oh, this is kind of what you were talking about earlier. Or someone was, I didn't know whose name was associated with the voice, but where it just glitched for me as well. And then description. So the desert rec, and then visit DREC website. We can highlight that, Control C. Paste as plain text, and it's not letting me paste. Visit. That's odd. Let's try this. I'm going to do plus text. There it does. Oh, so you have to do the plus and do text. Good. And then we'll add in a hyperlink. We'll just do one of these. We won't do more. Control C or copy. Highlight this. Select the link. Control V. Enter. And there we have the first of the recs. What you could do is you could do, and then you could just do plus, and then repeat that whole process over and over again to create all the rest of them. But since we're at the top of the hour, that was all of the workshop material. The only thing that I didn't get to plug too much was to ask if you could fill out the evaluation form that Andy might put in the chat right now, or we'll send out to you very briefly. And that's yeah, that covers everything there. I mean, like all the basics, at least, that I can think of. And if you have any questions, don't forget. And if you need any follow-up, Mondays and Tuesdays, we do office hours, and we're happy to help you continue on your learning journey on this stuff. Any questions, anything you want to add that comes as for the IGS team, as well as everybody that's still here on this fine Friday afternoon? It's been a quiet crowd today.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sean. That was awesome.
Thank you, Sean.
And someone asked when the recording will be posted, and that will be on, that'll probably usually is like Tuesday or Wednesday. So I usually have meetings all day on Monday. And so I don't get a chance to get to it until Tuesday in general. All right, hopefully that was good for everybody.
It was.
Yeah, seemed to go real smooth.
Yeah.
Better each time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ben did put the evaluation link in the chat window there one more time. We will send it out to people who are in today as well.
Mm-hmm. If you follow the the one, there's one last thing I should have mentioned, and it's really intuitive, but one thing I should have mentioned is once you have it all done, just click publish.
Mm-hmm.
And when you click publish, it'll come up. Click publish again. You can share it private, but if you set it to everyone and publish, it'll take a minute for it to finish up. It recognizes that you need to change the sharing settings, so it'll do it automatically for you. It didn't always do that, which is fantastic. And it'll go find the underlying data, and once it's published, it'll pop up again, and you can just copy the URL and send that to anybody you want, and that's how you share it. Good. There you go. And then there's your story map, like almost a full-fledged web page. Good.
John, I put that in the comments, but I don't know if you've seen it. I'm not, when I try to put the video, add the video, it doesn't, I mean, it kind of freezes. It doesn't move forward.
It didn't upload the video.
I mean, I put the video in there,
Yes.
like I dragged it and dropped it in there. I
Mhm.
said, okay, or something, or like add it. And then it kind of grays out and doesn't do anything. And if I close that, it just, nothing happens, basically.
That's weird. Huh.
Is there any tips on?
Save it and then close it and then reopen it and then try to do the steps again where you add video and try to open it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then make sure that, so if when you add it, because there's two that are very similar, if you try to add video where it's using the PNG file, it'll freeze it. And you have to make sure you're using the direct video, and it needs to be, so here, I'll go down and I'll show you. Oops, I have to start editing again. Edit story. Those are the three buttons at the top. So I'll just randomly try to add a video anywhere, just right here. So if I want to add, let's see, the video was done with, actually, I should probably go down and do it in the sidecar where it belonged.
Yeah.
So right here, I could go, oops, gotta get the zoom out of the way. If I wanted to add the video in there, I click on the add image or video. You can browse to the files, or again, you could go to here, and this is where you're saying it just grays out, huh?
Yeah.
And
I do
then,
that. It doesn't load.
oh, it doesn't load, huh?
Yeah.
So who's your
I need to
account?
wait more time.
Let me check one thing. Where's your account through? Is it a Berkeley account or what?
No, I use the UCANR account.
Weird. Because there used to be a limit that it had to be 50 megabytes or less, or it wouldn't play. And so I had to reduce the size of the video considerably to make it work right. That limitation was lifted some time ago. But you know what? It's one of those things. It's so weird with any kind of GIS-esque like thing, any general. You can try it 5 times and it will work every time. And then the 6th time, the same exact workflow won't work. And I've never figured out why that is. And one of the ways to get it to work is that you close it all. So you save it, close it, reopen it, and then try to do it. And then it sometimes works.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you have trouble with that, or if it comes up in the future, yeah, just reach out to us and we'll, set the office hours is a good time. We can help you problem shoot this stuff.
And you can keep saving it before you publish it, right? For a while.
Yes. Keeps it save. Or you know what you do is you publish it just to yourself. So just private. That's the way you want to publish it that way. Then it's like saving it. It's a more robust way of saving it, just so you have it for yourself and it's secure.
Nice. Thank you.
Sure.
Someone said that also refreshing the page works.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, good.
Thank you guys. This was awesome.
All right. Thank you. Have a great weekend.